welcome everyone. We are right at 11:02, and I want to make sure that we're respectful. So thank you for coming and attending the new Construction Mastermind. And we have some amazing panelists here with us this morning who will actually really help to answer and give clarity as far as where the new construction market is today in terms of inventory and supplies, but also how they actually broke into that market, what they're doing, because each one of them have a little different spin on their approach into working with builders, developers, and investors. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the ladies first, Jeff. Miss Pam Ahern, let's talk about you, and if you will tell a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you currently do.
Okay. I am Pam Ahern. Thank you for having me. Excited to be working alongside these two today, for all of you guys. I have been in residential real estate for about 23 years now, and I have worked with builders since, 2003 or 4. And I have worked everything from sales to consulting, working with asset management companies, sellers, regular sellers, developers, worked and launched and grown into new markets. I've consulted down in Florida. So I have a varied experience. Currently, I manage on-site sales and work with our new construction leg or arm of the RPM Home Advisors Group.
Awesome. So we've got a lot of good questions for you. Our next panelist is LaCressa Morrow. And LaCressa, if you'll tell everyone a little bit about you and your level of business that you're doing and who you work with.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So I have been, and this will be my 16th year in real estate. So I came in a little bit after everyone was making a ton of money, and it was 100% financing and sight unseen and multiple offers. So I got into new construction when I started working with the marketing directors, which was created around 2007. So the focus of the marketing directors was we were a one-stop shop for developers. So I started doing on-site sales in 2008. My first building went into foreclosure, and then because of the market. And then in 2009 is when I really started getting into the business and really making money with selling Castleberry Point. So I've sold about 10 developments in the city. I tend to work with small developers who are doing no more than maybe 30, 40 homes or less. I'm kind of a one-stop shop. So developers will come to me if they're looking at land. I will help them find land. We will talk about highest and best use. From there, I work with architects and designers. We create the design experience, and then I create a sales and marketing plan. In 2000, at the time when I got into new construction, there was 3.5 years worth of inventory left, all of those high rises in downtown and midtown and all of that. So once all of that inventory was gone, I really had to switch my business model and hone in my expertise on ground up sales. So I've been doing ground up sales since 2014, selling by floor plans, product information, and renderings, doing pre-sales with the goal of being, 90 to 100% under contract by the time we start delivering. Currently, I'm working with Community Land Trust on an affordable housing project, townhome community in Oakland City, but we're right at the beginning of that. So we're still working through some things. And then recently I did Pullman Flat right across from Pratt Pullman, which is 60 condos. And that's about it.
Awesome. All right. We've got a lot of experience here and very diverse. Jeff Raw, tell us a little bit about you and what is your specialty?
Sure. Thanks for having me. First of all, it's tough to follow those two. They've got awesome backgrounds and experiences, but I come at it from a slightly different angle. I started working in the construction world with my dad up in Ohio, where I grew up, when I was about 6 years old. So I was always on a job site, cleaning up after them and doing that. So worked my way all the way through college doing that. So learned about the construction industry, but was always interested in the real estate side of things and the investing side. So got my license 20 years ago and have been working with what we call traditional buyers and sellers, but I'd say probably about half of our business is investor focused. So where these other two are working on larger projects and bigger developers typically, our team likes to find the kind of the one-off investor clients, and we help them locate opportunities and deals. So whether it's a gut renovation, fix and flip on the west side of town, or if it's new construction, we're dabbling our toe into a little bit of multifamily, but we're generally focused on single family in town properties. So our tagline is buy, sell, renovate, build, invest. So we look at it holistically. So some of our clients are other realtors and we'll do construction work for them. Some of our clients are builders and we just do real estate. And some of our clients are busy professionals that don't know anything about real estate, but they want to kind of diversify their investments. So we can do soup to nuts with them, create an LLC for them, find the deals, sign all the documents for them, design it, build it, stage it, market them, and then even give them a K-1 tax return at the end of the year if they want. So that's us.
Impressive, very impressive. So I'm going to start back around because the first question I think that a lot of people have is, I'd like to break into this market. This is something that I'm interested in. I may not have grown up in it, but I may have some experience because if we're in sales, we've all worked with new construction, bringing buyers. But how do you represent the sellers? How do you break into that market? So Pam, if you don't mind, I'll start back with you. How did you actually get started? And Pam, let me just say this. If you'll put your question in the chat box, we'll get through. So anybody, please put your questions in the chat box. Thank you. Go ahead, Pam.
So my husband is an architect and a builder. And you would think that would be, oh, you're going to sell his stuff. But I choose to be married to him. So I don't do that.
Happy life.
It does give me a little extra knowledge, because I hear it all the time. But the way I got started is I listed some land for a friend of mine and a builder bought it. And he was impressed by the way I represented her and said, will you represent me? And then it snowballed from there. It was giving great service to a client and someone recognizing that service and then asking me to work with them. It sounds simple. It wasn't, but it took a lot to get that one client to list that land. But yeah, that's how I got started.
Okay. LaCressa, and you?
For me, it was, working with the marketing directors. So I got hired with them to sit on site for a project. Generally, when you start out in new construction, especially for a larger development that's going to take some time to develop, a lot of times you get your foot in the door by being willing to sit on site. And it does take a lot of time. It's a full-time job. So you're on site 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, available for people to walk in. And that's usually how most people get their feet wet.
Awesome, awesome. Jeff, I know that you've kind of grown up in the industry, but how would you say that you really continued that path?
For me, in the Atlanta market, it started out, I was working in the construction industry while I had kind of a fledgling, real estate business on the side where I would, part-time dabble into it. But one of my subcontractors that I work with turned out to be a pretty big investor. So we had built a solid relationship with a lot of trust. And he started to look for properties. I said, why don't we represent you? And we've been doing deals ever since. That's probably 15 years ago.
Wow, I love it. I love it. Okay, so Pam, you started with through your husband just learning that knowledge. What training what type of training was it? Learned by fire, or did you actually take courses? Did you get certifications? I'd like to know a little bit about just the educational part in terms of really learning your craft. And so LaCressa, I'm going to start with you, and then I'll go to Jeff and then Pam.
So for me, it was just every day. on the ground learning. Once the way that that company worked, we would take over sites from previous brokerages. So, you know, that developer would end that agreement with, you know, say, you know, a Caldwell banker on Monday, and then we would start sitting on site on Tuesday. So we would have to hit the ground running. So I would just have floor plans, pricing, condo docs to start reviewing, and then learning my buildings. Start understanding how they created the value, how these buyers see value. You learn more with the more people you walk through homes, right? You learn lessons with each one. You forgot to ask a question the first time with the first group that came in. So by the second time, you remember to not, you know, you remember to ask that question. So it's trial by fire, honestly. It's paying attention. And then from there, it's just asking a lot of questions. Asking your developer why they came to this project, what their idea is, what their goal is, and anybody that comes that's related to the project, whether it's architects, designers, or whatever, you ask questions and you just seek in their knowledge.
Love it, love it, love it. Jeff, I know with you looking and working with investors and getting in that way and then building and developing, what type of training, skill sets, you know, educational piece did you have to have in order to equip yourself with that?
Sure. No formal education, so to speak, in that. So for me, it was a lot of trial by fire and kind of learning the do's and the don'ts. So I've done a lot of don'ts. So what I would say is try to find a mentor that's doing it today, and understand that people have busy lives. So figure out, if you want to get into the business, find somebody that is doing it already and figure out what kind of value you can add to them. And while you're there, just be a sponge and soak it all up. So to me, there's a combination. You need to have amazing market knowledge, which all of our realtors should already, but kind of narrow in your focus and what your market's going to be. But then on the other side, you need to know, where construction costs are today, because if you're trying to analyze a deal, you need to have all the data to be able to add value.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about value proposition. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Pam, I know that your husband was an introduction as an architect. However, what did you have to get in terms of additional expertise and learning?
I was part of our neighborhood association, and there were that where if a developer or a builder or a homeowner wanted to come in and put a property, a house on a vacant lot, I learned a lot about what could and what couldn't happen there. Urban Design Commission, go into NPU meetings, go into neighborhood meetings, what people wanted to do, zoning, that kind of thing. I still have the really thick paper zoning book. I prefer the book, not online. Educating myself, it was a lot of self-education, just like Jeff and LaCressa. I ask good questions. I look at everyone as an opportunity to be a mentor, whether they're newer, seasoned or not, whether they are someone who does something that really irritates every fiber of your being. I still think that is an opportunity to learn, and always take something from every experience, and what to fine tune and change and shift and mold to make it better the next time. And then knowing the market, really not just going on FMLS and looking at it, but going into other new homes and really getting a checklist. How high are their ceilings? What kind of lights do they have? What kind of floors do they have? Noticing all the details, to going multiple times, talking to on-site agents. It was a lot of self-training.
I love it. Pam and LaCressa, a lot of your experience kind of mirrors. And then Jeff, I have a specific question for you. But ladies, I want to ask you first, your value proposition. All of you have talked about really on the ground training and educating yourselves. I love that you said that you have to know the market. And I think sometimes as agents, we have all of these statistics, and that's just not our thing. How did you, what would you say the value proposition is when you talk to a builder when you talk to a developer and you want to be able to say, hey, I want to market this neighborhood, what's the value proposition that they're looking for that you have to bring?
You know.
Any of us?
Yeah.
I say it's definitely market knowledge. That's obviously true. For me, I think I brought a little bit of diversity to these developers because I've always had a resale business. At the time when I got into new construction sales, there were people who just only sat on site. That's all that they did, and they sold one product. And that can happen to get your foot into the door. I was lucky enough to be able to not only sell a development, but also keep my resale business. And I've always worked with affordable buyers. I've always dealt with down payment assistance, which is also the reason why I got on particular sites, because they were affordable and I knew down payment assistance. So I became that added to my value there. That's how I got offset rental town costing and sold that for the Beltline, because of me working with affordable buyers and working with Invest Atlanta and Atlanta Housing Authority and Georgia Dream Funds for a long time. So it's, so you have to understand that, and also understand that developers are not out in the market. And you have to be kind of the middleman between what you know that the buyers are looking for, and also be able to interpret that language where it makes sense to them. Because a lot of times, like when I'm dealing with my people, they're always focused on price per square foot. It's very rare that we have buyers who go, I want to stay at a price per square foot of $225. They don't think of it in those terms. They think of it in as, I want to be at 250, I want to be at 300, I want to be. So you have to be able to take buyer knowledge and interpret it into developer speak, because they don't speak the same language. And that's how you create value for them. They don't understand lending. They don't understand a lot. They don't understand as many things as you think they do. They know how to build a product. They know what that value is. And then you bring to the table everything else, marketing, strategy. They have no idea about strategy. So that's where you create your value.
I love it. You mentioned one thing, LaCressa, and I just want to hone in on it. You said that developers are not easily found. How would people find developers? What is a good route for them to find developers?
So if you pay attention to different NPUs and neighborhood associations, like Pam said, everybody has to go before their neighborhood and go before the city. And generally speaking, a lot of times developers will find a piece of land and we'll get that under contract with an option. A lot of times my developers will not close on land until they get to LDP, to the land disturbance permit. And so you're working on this, they're working on this project a lot longer than before it actually comes knowledgeable to the market. So kind of how Josh Green is always up on new developments is because he scrubs the city and he sees who's filing building permits. And not everyone who's filing building permits has a marketing and sales strategy. They just have an end goal if they want to build a house or 5 houses or 10 houses or a townhome. So if you pay attention to who those LLCs are, then you can backtrack and figure that out. And that would be a way to go about getting them.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that knowledge. Pam, value proposition. What do you bring to your developers, your builders? What is your value proposition so that they continue to use you, or they want to use you over someone else?
I have a track record of success, you know, much like LaCressa, you sell out projects, I've worked through projects that have had difficult backgrounds and moving them through the difficult backgrounds. I've worked with very difficult builders who are no longer in the business even, and stay with the projects and move them through. I have experience, as I said, working with asset management companies. So I bring a lot to the table as far as my experience and my flexibility and my knowledge. And I'm really confident in my knowledge. I'm also not so big on my confidence that I feel like I always have the right answer. I'm always open to, let's lay it out and massage it and see, is this the best strategy? Is this the best price? I look at it more like I'm a partner with the builder and developer. Yes, they build houses and I'm not going to tell them how to build houses, but I'm often brought in to get my take on, what do you think about this rail or that rail or this, how many steps do we need here or this material? So I, give a unique perspective to them in that way. Yeah, and strategy, that's the other thing.
Love it. All right, Jeff, you're working with investors. You're doing it from the very beginning all the way to the end. How do we get into relationships with that? With those clients, how do we find them? I mean, all of us kind of know investors, but if you're doing that and that is your specialty, what value proposition are you bringing to them to help them to find them? How do you find them? And then what's your value proposition that you're bringing to them?
Sure. Let me start with a value proposition. Too many times I see agents just coming in at the very last second. Okay, here's the product. Go ahead and sell it. Sorry, phone's blowing up. But I think it's very important and ultra valuable to get in early with them, because, and it depends on your investor, your developer, because many of these developers, they're financial people. They look at the numbers. They don't look at the finishes, things like that. Pam mentioned it a little bit, like what type of handrail. With a lot of our clients, we've been doing it so often. And we're working in the markets that we know, so we know what type of finishes people want. We're never going to go into a big box store and just say, I'll buy all these off the shelves. We have a kind of a certain aesthetic that we're going for, and we want to be involved in that at all times, because there's certain products, honestly, that they come out and I don't think any of us would want to put our name on. So we want to get involved early on it and make sure they're hitting the point in the market. So that would kind of be the value proposition, is to get involved early. And if you don't know design, if you don't do design, at least get up to speed on it. And, we've all talked about what's in your market. Is it oil rub bronze? Is it matte black? Is it going back to chromes? Who knows? But figure out what that hot point is and follow that. And finding developers, I think a good resource, we talked about a lot of NPUs and finding stuff through the city, that there are a lot of channels and online channels. The bulk of our work is City of Atlanta, and the City of Atlanta has an online permit system. It's called Accella, ACCELLA, I believe, something like that. But that is a really good resource. You can just punch in an address. It'll give you information on any permits pulled. And it's just like an FMLS system. Play around in it, get in there, and you can find the people that are pulling permits. So whether it's big developers, small developers, you can start looking and fishing around in there, and jump on social media. That there's a lot of people and resources to find things out there.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. KW has the new construction market segment. Are either of you all a part of that? Are you looking at joining that segment? And if so, what do you find the benefits may be in joining that segment?
In the New Homes group or whatever that KW has,
Yes.
I just joined their Facebook group,
Mm-hmm.
and I did sign up for one of their classes, so I have it like online where I could see it. I just have to find time to go check it out. It's more for agents. My understanding is it's for agents who are wanting to work to sell new homes, not to be working with builders or developers. They're kind of getting their in through going into, you say someone's got a listing and you want to go in and sell it and represent and have your clients be people who are looking to buy new homes. That's my understanding. You guys please correct me.
Not as familiar with it, so I'm still need to explore a little more.
Ditto.
I think you're right, Pam.
I go with Pam's answer.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I think, well, what I have found is that is exactly it. And a lot of questions have come about, well, if I'm trying to work with builders and developers, why would I want to be a part of that? I always look at everything as far as networking. You talked about having mentors. And so I always tell people that, just because they're doing this in another state doesn't mean that it cannot be done right here in Georgia. So really being able to have that network where you can find more people that are mentors and willing to be able to share information, because it is a process in order for you to get there. Let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about the market of today. What are the opportunities and where are the opportunities? So Jeff, I'm going to start with you, then LaCressa, then Pam.
Okay, I can only speak to the segment that I typically work with, which is inside the perimeter. So we originally cut our teeth doing a lot of things on the east side of town, and we saw prices creep up to the point where most of our investors didn't have the appetite to take on the $1 million projects. So what we did, and this was 5 years ago, is take a look at the Beltline. Let's see the neighborhoods that are up and coming along there. And, we've all seen how fast that took off. So what I would say is take a look again, the Beltline which is kind of our beachfront property. And then where is it heading next? I would really focus on those markets. And, generally just drive neighborhoods. Where do you see kind of a combination of boarded up houses, fixer-upper opportunities blended with a lot of dumpsters and a lot of temp power poles? Those are the markets that you want to be in.
Love it. LaCressa?
So anywhere there's going to be walkability and some vacant land, something's going to pop up there really soon. Right. So right now you're hearing about all of the stuff that's coming along the east side Beltline Trail, which is going to be really expensive. So there's that. So for your, 750 to 1.2 buyers that haven't been able to find that perfect thing in this market, there's a lot of that coming up very soon, particularly there. There's a lot going on around East Atlanta Village. A lot of townhome communities. Right now, you're going to see a bunch of townhomes more than you're going to see condominiums, just because it's an easier value proposition for developers to get financing. And the condominiums that you do see going to tend to be luxury high rises. So you do have some rare opportunities that are popping up here and there, smaller condo buildings. Pullman Flats will be one of them. I just saw some marketing about a couple more that are coming on the market in town. But you also have to have the patience for it as well, right? Because if they're talking about it now, you're not going to be touching or feeling anything for at least a year, if not longer. And so you also, when you're working for developers or you're working with buyers who want to purchase new construction, it's a patience game, and you have to be able to control their expectations throughout the process, because they will get frustrated and then get excited and then get frustrated and then get excited. But anywhere that there's walkability right now, developers are snapping up that land. A lot of the land that you see that you think is vacant, they're already working on projects for it. They just haven't announced it yet.
Thank you for that. Pam, opportunities. Where can we find them?
Like Jeff and LaCressa were both saying, walkability, Beltline, neighborhoods. So since the developers I tend to work with do acre minimum size properties, so I may look at contiguous lots that may have, is it in an area where there might be a multifamily opportunity, because I typically do townhomes as a single family, although I've done single family. If you've got enough contiguous lots, they can buy them together and, have enough to do one development. They also, interestingly enough, other parcels that have been used for maybe a retail, the retail's dying a little bit, and that edge could be converted and it can now become a townhome. That's something that you can look at. So you've got a busier street and, a large parking surface and a smaller building, or boarded up area that's, with a larger parking space that's typically flat and easy to develop, already has city services there. That's something they like to look at. I had one developer who also would take a look at apartments. So they were multifamily as well as towns and singles. They look at multifamily development, and if the multifamily rent was at a certain price point, they knew, okay, we can capture some of these people when they do their next bump up in the rent. And now we have a townhome, we have something for them to go into. And it's perfect because you can sell them all very quickly before you're even finished building. So that's another kind of strategy that some of the larger builders look at.
And I would
I'd
also, go ahead, Jeff, sorry.
I'd also say, look at markets that in the past were typically not very attractive. Look, for example, at Memorial Drive right now.
Yeah.
Right through the Beltline. It was all commercial and kind of worn out. And now it's
Worn
amazing.
out, yes.
Yeah, it's an amazing spot to be. I remember selling a house in Grant Park, and it was tucked in Grant Park's cute little pocket. They said, it's just too far from Memorial. I'm like, what? So those are the opportunities that it may not be as attractive for the traditional single family house, but where the zoning can be a little bit more creative, it creates these opportunities for townhomes, condominiums, and a more diverse kind of mix of housing.
And you'd be amazed at what you can put on a lot, right? So, I have done several projects where it was, a third of an acre, and I was able to get 10 to 13 townhomes on there, depending on the size. Also, developers themselves are also flipping properties, right? They will get property under contract, they will get through LDP, and then, they change their business model in the middle of the game and they decide they want to go after something else. So then they're going to start reaching out to other developers that they know to flip land. Chris with Thrive does it all the time. Some of the developers I do as well, they'll get a project started and then they'll put the feelers out there and then pass it on to someone else and they take the baton and keep on moving. So even when you don't think that there's an opportunity there, there's still possibly an opportunity for you to take over that development.
Yeah, and that's a totally different business model too, getting the entitlements involved and, finding the deal and becoming an expert on the zoning and the different opportunities there. That's a huge void right now. And there's a great opportunity there as well. You have to be patient.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, go for it.
When I'm talking about opportunities to work with developers as well. So I have a handful of land guys or gals. Typically, they're always guys these days, but could be some gals. So the people who are on their land acquisition for some of the larger builders, they may have something just like LaCressa said that it's no longer working for them, and now they're looking to see if someone else is interested in it. So just circling around to them with some consistency helps. Keeps that relationship going.
So talk to me a little bit about your team. Is it just you doing all of this? It sounds like a whole lot to do. We've got to do the research, investigate, learn, all of that. But who do you bring with you to the table? What does your team look like? What roles do they play on your team? And lastly, what type of budget do you have to have in order to do the marketing and all of these things? So Pam, I'm going to start with you. I'll go to Jeff and then to LaCressa. Oh, Pam, we can barely hear you.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Our team is made up of new construction agents as well as agents who do resale. All of our new construction agents can also do resale. So in that interim, while the project is being developed and getting ready to come off of the ground, they can do resale. And then otherwise they're on site. When it comes to the research and searching other properties, we are always looking. So if one of our agents on site has a particular community, I want them to know everything about what's around it, not just get it from me. Like, where are people shopping? Where are they eating? What are their favorite spots? What are the issues that are happening in the area? Who are the people living here? What do they like to do for fun? Any little tidbit of information that you can think of around that area that you would want to know about your own home. So they become the experts in that. They preview around that property. I'm also doing the same thing. I have a little spreadsheet that we put together that we answer ceiling heights, or like all that information, so you know the spec of the particular homes in the area. And then we update it as a group together. And most of the builder developer conversations come from me. But once they're on site, when we have construction calls or construction meetings so they can keep up with the progress and where we are, then the agent also gets involved in that as well. The other question you asked was about budgeting. It depends. So sometimes the budget comes from the builder developer. Sometimes it comes from us. And it can completely vary depending on the project and how we get paid back, if we're spending the money totally up front or if we're spending part of the money. So
Awesome.
that depends on what the builder, how big the builder is. I've had smaller builders and they don't have the budget, but we partner together, have regular meetings. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're tracking. Here's the places where we're reaching buyers.
Love it, love it, love it. Jeff, I saw you put something in the chat, so you want to expand a little bit about that because that's a part of your team, a project manager.
Sure. I wish I had somebody that was directly responsible for kind of managing the projects early on in the phase, but it tends to be, and ours is a family business. I work with my sister. So between my sister and I, we both work the construction side and the real estate piece of it. So for us, generally working smaller projects. So what we will do is I'm generally upfront on the analysis of a deal. Let's make the numbers work. And then kind of bounce back and forth between my sister and I. Like, we don't have somebody that's dedicated. Okay, you're the project manager. When you get actually into the construction role, that's a different thing. We've got a sales and marketing person, pre-construction person, and then actual project management team. And then we have a communications concierge and finance person. But in general, I think you as the leader of your real estate business should kind of be at a higher level, just be looking at everything. You're not going to get into the minutia of the developer's building business. Like, you're generally not going to be ordering light fixtures or plumbing fixtures for them, but you're going to be kind of steering them to a certain thing, if that helps.
Absolutely, it does. Thank you for sharing that. LaCressa, what does your team look like? Oh, Jeff, I didn't ask. Oh, sorry, LaCressa, your budget. How do you work in terms of budgeting money? Do you, with your investors, your developers, I know that you all are doing a lot yourselves, but what does that look like in terms of your budget?
So from the marketing perspective, is that, so with ours, again, we're generally on smaller kind of one-off projects. So we may have one developer doing 6 different projects, but it's not one big townhouse complex or anything like that. So we just have, we treat each project as an individual listing. So our team, generally what we'll do, we'll provide the professional videos, photography. We'll do pre-listing appraisals so that we know that our numbers are spot on, and it also gives us a leverage tool when we're negotiating. So, I would say on a typical listing, maybe $1,000 per project. I think that's about fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. LaCressa.
So for me, when I originally got into new construction sales, I was working with a company, and then with the marketing directors that turned into Ansley Developer Services. So I've been with KW a little over a year now and stepped out on my own to do developer services myself. So I'm a one-stop shop. I had an assistant recently. I need a new assistant, but I pretty much do everything. Because at the same time, it's fast and slow paced in moments when you're dealing with development. So you're working on a project for a really long time, but I don't have to dedicate 40 hours or, a week to that particular project. You're in and out because everything it's stops and starts. You start, so I'm able to have my resale business while I'm still working my developer relationship, depending on where we are in that phase. And then when it comes to my marketing materials, I will hire people to do packages and things like that. So, and kind of set it up for them to be able to do that. So I'm a one-stop shop. I probably need to expand my team to grow my business. But as of right now, with the 2 projects that I've had, It's just been me. And I generally will sell multiple projects at the same time while having a resale business. So.
Love it. All right, we've got some questions in the chat box, so I want to go up. Horace asks, he has another agent and he would want to buy land, have a builder build it and then sell it. As we are new, the initial costs are high, about 20 to 30% down. Will it be cheaper if they bring it to a builder? What advice do any of you all have?
I would say you just have to take a look at the numbers and
Yeah.
put it in a spreadsheet both ways. I've got a zillion different spreadsheets to analyze every little situation, and we do it a million different ways. So we joint venture with people all the time, which is a great way, but always make sure you have an LLC and an operating agreement, because when things go bad, they go bad, and it needs to be clearly defined. So I think it's great because of the industry that we're in and the knowledge that we have. I think people miss the boat when they're not investing themselves, you know, whether it be long-term passive income or doing fix and flips for cash flow. I think you need to be looking at all those options. And I think it's important to have kind of a rainy day fund set up, because things will go south at some point. Hopefully not as many as when you'll have many more successful projects than bad ones.
And Pam, you were going to add something. You were kind of muted a little bit.
My question, were they looking for someone to do a fee build? So they have the lot and it sounds like they were looking for have a builder do a fee build, or are they looking to partner with a builder? So
I think he was looking for the cost. He's asking the question, he's looking the initial cost or to put 20 to 30% down. I think he's wondering if it will be cheaper if they bring it to a builder instead of them trying to build and develop it themselves.
that's a Jeff question.
I think he answered it.
I think so too. Yeah, Jeff answered it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you have to look at the numbers, and the numbers aren't going to lie, because you know, and it
Don't
depends.
ignore the numbers.
Yeah, and there's different ways to structure it. Some of our investors will partner up with us, so maybe they bring the cash, we provide the sweat equity, and then so you can get creative like that. If you don't have, you know, most lenders are going to require 20 to 30% to put down. If you don't have that, find somebody, because right now in this market, the most valuable thing is not necessarily the knowledge expertise, it's the deal. They're so hard to find right now. So if you're bringing a good deal and you've got, you know, the gumption to go after it and find the right people, I think you're entitled to, you know, get paid for your services, but also a percentage of profit share.
Love it. Great answer. There's another question, and LaCressa, this may go more towards you because I know you were talking about City of Atlanta. Are any of the builders/developers utilizing funds from City of Atlanta or Invest Atlanta for their developments?
It would have to be larger projects, generally not one-offs, because most of the funds for Invest Atlanta tend to go towards for the development side. So you have two different sides. There's a ton of funds for buyers of all different price points. And then there's select funds for developers, but it depends on the type of development that they're doing. A lot of it goes towards maybe not necessarily, the developers generally would already have to have control of the land. And then they will get some funds towards, you know, developing the land or maybe the first phase of construction. So it depends on the type of project, because all of those funds are very specific to what you're focused on, what type of affordability, where it's going to be. So if they just go to the Invest Atlanta website, it'll list all of that. And then from there, Invest Atlanta will be able to give you other resources that are also contributing towards, you know, housing and development, whether it be rental or for sale. So you start with Invest Atlanta and then go dig deeper.
Love it. Another question, where is a good place to hire people to do your marketing packages? Who do you all use for that when you're marketing the communities? Where do you all get your marketing packages? Who do you use?
started using the marketing department. And one, I love the name. So let me send that over to the marketing department. It sounds like you have your own internal marketing department. But they are fast and responsive. I think they do a great job. There are plenty of others, but I most recently have really loved working with them.
Pam, it's Rob. Who pays for that? Do you pay for that, or does the builder pay for that?
So it's a mix of both. Depends on what it is they're designing. If it's social media stuff, it's me. If it is collateral for the job, for the actual project, they pay for it. I may fund it and do a reimbursement or send it directly to them, but it's a mix.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Rob asked another, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, LaCressa.
So Rob, it's just like any contract is all negotiable, right?
Yeah.
In your marketing and sales agreement. So like for a project that I did before, we negotiated who owned what, who was responsible for what. So I paid for a lot of the marketing collateral, but they were responsible for paying for their branding, because I also, you will help with creating names for the site and branding and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So they may have ownership of certain things. There are certain things that I have ownership of. Like if I create the website, it's my website. So if we end up not going to the end of the process together, then on the back end, you're paying me for this website because that is a big piece of your collateral. But all of it is negotiable. And then I also negotiate my commission rates based on what I'm also putting into marketing as well, right? So I might get a little bit more on the back end because I'm paying for the marketing up front. But a lot of builders, ever since the market crash, are very tight with their marketing budgets. So you have to be really creative. Yeah, you have to be creative.
Awesome, thanks.
Here's another question that came up because I've got a couple that are coming through. And Jeff, thank you so much because you're responding to some of them for me. Yes, okay. So I think Ruth asked, where do you find contractors for fix and flips? She's trying to build a team. She has a contractor, but she has a team and an investor, but cannot find the contractors. So Jeff put a couple of things in there as far as sources that she could actually look at. Pam, LaCressa, do you have any sources, additional sources that you all utilize?
I don't have a lot of the fix and flip investor contractors. Mine are typically the larger new construction contractors, so I do not.
For me, with doing smaller projects, the contractors, the vendors that they hire for the development sites, I end up getting to know them. So the painters, the tile people, things like that. They generally have side businesses. With new construction, you get tied up into a project, but when you finish that project, there's no guarantee that the next project is lining up immediately. So a lot of times they'll have flexibility. And so that's how I met my current contractor that I refer to a lot of my personal clients and has done work for me. My painters are people that I've interacted with on development sites because you get to know these people because you're working together for a very long time.
There was another question that came about, how do you actually approach the builders to partner with them? And I know we touched on that a little bit as far as where to find them. What's your approach?
Service. So
Pam,
come from service. Ask them what if they could, what's their biggest pain point? What are they trying to solve right now? What are things that they're having issues with? And as real estate agents, we're like gatekeepers for a lot of different people. And we know a lot of people, so because we know a lot of people, chances are we know someone who can help them fill that need. It may not be sales. It may not be, there's something else that you can do that you're showing up, being of service and helping them. And I look at it, even if they don't use you, they will remember you and they will come back. And it's just paying it forward. And I had my builders call me and say, I really, really need this specialty trim person. If this wasn't someone who was working with me, they are now. We're looking for a specialty trim person to do this detail that you can't just hire anyone who is a framing contractor to do. Like, who do you know? I really need someone. So I was able to get, source 2 or 3 people for him. And they remembered my name when they were looking to do another project. So that's how I do it. I come from service. I reach out and find out what they need.
All right, LaCressa, anything different?
That is wonderful. I have been just really blessed that the business that I have now is based on relationships that I had in the past. And where people started off maybe as just like one-offs, doing a house here, a house there, and then grew their business into becoming more of a developer versus an investor flipper. So I've just been able to just maintain those relationships with them. And then developers always know other developer and builders. And so once you create those really great relationships, your name starts to get out there amongst different groups of people, and they'll start reaching out to you as well. So I've been fortunate that I haven't directly had to go to a builder and ask for business, but that will happen because I'm about to go after someone right now. So, but yeah, so I've just been fortunate that it's just been based on past relationships and them expanding their business as I've been expanding mine.
Jeff, thank you so much for adding that. Jeff, would you add anything additional?
I would say it's the same thing that we're doing with our traditional buyers and sellers, and it's based on the two things that LaCressa and Pam just mentioned, that those relationships and coming from service. So just as if you were doing great service for a buyer, you want them telling about your friend, telling their friends about you. You're going to do the same thing with developers. So it's hard to kind of get that first developer, but that's where you need to come, with market knowledge and all of those things, and knowing your numbers so that you can kind of earn that first opportunity, and then you shine in that opportunity, and that leads to others down the road.
Right. I love that. I came from new construction background, and one of the things that I feel that we have as a value add that builders look for are the statistics. They want to see where the market demands are, what the trajectory is, and we have that through a lot of the resources that we actually offer. So Chartmasters is one of them. You can actually use, do you all utilize any of these resources, or do you have your own resources that you like to get? What are you using to bring that value to them? Because it's not just pulling from MLS and FMLS.
My builders love the Chartmaster Chuck. When are you going to get those reports? I will have them ask me, because I've seen them. When are you going to get those reports? I want to see them. Or they'll have a project that's going on, and then, annually the bank or investor group they want to analyze the numbers and see where they are and where they're tracking for the project. And they'll say, do you have those numbers that you sent us before? I think we could use them to plug them in. Chartmaster Chucks has been great for me to use.
Yeah, I'd say it's a combination of that. Chartmaster Chuck is fantastic because for me, I'll look at all those numbers and my eyes glaze over. It's too much. But if you can pull, 5 talking points out of that, that's fantastic. Yeah. And then share that for those S's and C's in your network where they want to see all that data, send that to them. But what we've done internally is, and it's part of just market research in general, I do a spreadsheet that's just called neighborhood stats. So I'll pick a neighborhood we do a lot of work in, say Kirkwood, and I can go back and I'll create this spreadsheet and I'll just pull solds for the last 90 days. My goal is to have maybe 10 to 15 recent sales, and then I can figure out from that, okay, what's my average price per square foot, average days on market, sales price versus list price. And then I go back, I've got all that historical data, so I can look at a spreadsheet from 2015 that I did and compare it to today and say, wow, this is what the Kirkwood market has done. So, and I've got that in Dropbox or Google Drive. So if I'm out in the field and somebody's saying, well, what do you think about this market? And I can back that up with historical data. So that's something you can do as well.
So mine is completely different from both of them. I tend to work with small developers, and when I'm working with my developers and they're coming to me with a piece of land and we're looking at highest and best use, My goal is always to create something new and different and a new niche that people don't have in that current market. So a lot of times with the developments that I sell, I don't have apples to apples comps because I'm creating something new in that neighborhood. So Pullman Flats, for example, you know, is the first condominium development since AZ2. AZ2 was what, 2007, 2009. So even if I did send them market analysis of Kirkwood, it doesn't relate to what the current build numbers are, right? Because even though the resale numbers are great for AZ2, but it's different for Arizona, it's different for La France. And then you have David Weekley townhomes down the street that sold for 600, but that's not the same thing as a condo. So it depends on what you're selling. For sure. But for me, because I'm always creating a niche, I don't tend to have apples to apples comps. So my goal and my job is to educate them as why this is a unique value position because it is unique. And because it is unique, we can create that value there. But then I make sure that they back up that value with the level of finish and all that stuff, because developers love to price things a lot higher than what they want to invest in material wise. So it's a lot of battles in that sense, but you want to make sure that you're guiding them properly, that they understand what's going on in the neighborhood, but I'm also creating a unique value position that draws people there.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We've got 2 minutes left, and I wanted to just ask if you could leave the audience with one thing in order to get started, what would that be? They're not in new construction, or maybe they are, but if there's one thing that you could leave them, what would that be?
For me, it was knowing zoning and land, understanding lots, and what you can do wherever it is you find something. And you don't understand that until you go and dig into Muni Code and understand zoning. Because generally speaking, most things have to be rezoned or have some type of variance. And you need to be able to explain that to them and why it is needed.
I would say for my clients is having a knowledge of market data and the numbers. It's, you know, you need to know what it's going to cost to build, what the ARV is going to be at the end, and then that will lead you to what you can pay for a property.
So I would say know your market. You know, it's come from service and know your market. The knowing your market is not just knowing FMLS data. A lot of new construction is not listed online. They'll have 1 or 2 properties listed online. You don't have to list it in FMLS until the sheetrock is up. And I, like LaCressa, like to sell them before they're finished. So you need to go out and drive around and see what's being built, and go in, check it out, look at it, talk to the agent, talk to the builder, talk to whoever's there. Ask good questions.
Agents love to talk about their sites, by the way. Like
They love it.
They love to tell you about their developments. And honestly, you can create really great agency relationships. Like Pam and I know each other because we always sell in the same area. And if something doesn't work for someone that came through for me, then I send them to her. There's enough for everybody. We're all going to make our money. Not everybody's going to want my product. But if I know her product, then I become a value resource for that agent and that buyer down the road, right? Whose friend they may remember, they may even refer a friend to me because it's all about service. And at the end of the day, you're going to sell your community if you know your community. But it is a cooperative thing. Oh, and also drive around, have someone drive you around so you can actually really look at properties, because it's hard to look at properties.
I'll have my notepad, someone else is driving.
Great tip, great tip. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank our panelists for being here. Pam, LaCressa, Jeff, you all have been a wealth of knowledge. And I thank you for sharing just best practices and just what you're doing in your business. You have been a very good resource for all of us. I just want to remind everyone that if you came on late, you can find this recording at the Heart of Atlanta on YouTube. So if you go to the Heart of Atlanta group on YouTube, you will be able to find that the full recording. Thank you all so much for participating. I appreciate your time. You all have an award-winning day and go get some new business.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Right.